We are live.
Okay.
Oh,
Welcome to
Okay.
the meeting for March the 14th. This is our very first virtual meeting, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the board, and I'd like to note that this meeting is being held in accordance with Governor Lee's Executive Order number 16 that allows local governments to hold public meetings electronically due to the current COVID-19 public health crisis. And I really am missing seeing my colleagues. I am missing all the entertainment that we normally get at the first meeting of the month in relation to our choral groups, our art shows, our ambassadors. So we'll just have to suffer through that portion of today's meeting. I think that Dr. Severe is planning on calling the roll by district members. We have a slight amendment to our agenda if you want to jot it down. Under item number 1, we have a C, and Dr. Battle is going to address our audience and talk about the COVID-19 response. So Dr. Severe, it's all yours.
Yes, I would remind the board members that as part of the electronic meetings executive order, that all votes have to be taken as a roll call vote. So we'll do that by district, and we'll practice now with a roll call just to see who we have on the line. Dr. Gentry. Dr. Gentry. Ms. Elrod.
I'm here.
Ms. Spearing.
I'm here.
Ms. Shepard, my dog,
Here.
pardon me.
I'm here.
Ms. Bugs.
Here.
Ms. Bush. She'll be joining momentarily, we hope. Ms. Player Peters.
Here.
Ms. Pupo Walker.
Present.
And Ms. Frogue.
Here.
Madam Chair, I note 7 present, 2 absent at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum as evidenced by Dr. Severe's taking of the roll by district. And this is where Dr. Battle would address our audience to speak of the COVID response. Dr. Battle?
Dr. Battle, I'll show your microphone's muted.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. And as Ms. Shepard mentioned, it is so good to see everyone. I know we've been separated for several weeks now, but hopefully at some point during tonight's board meeting, we'll have everyone on camera so that we can see you and know that you're doing well and keeping up with everything that's happening. So good to see everyone. Thank you again. Chair, for allowing me a few minutes to address everyone and to provide a COVID-19 update. We know that parents, teachers, and students have been nervous about the COVID-19 response and what it means in their lives. More than ever, we wish that we were with students face-to-face in classrooms. It's a painful separation for everyone, but I know it will be a wonderful, beautiful, fabulous, joyous day when we return. And hopefully you can tell that I'm looking forward to that day. I think you will see an explosion of energy, very positive energy across the district on that day when we do resume school. I just wish we knew when it was going to be. We're still working through the many different details regarding the COVID-19 response. We want to ensure that we're in a safe space before we resume school. In the meantime, I'm excited to talk to you about the 3 phases of our new educational environment. First, our immediate phase was focused on the humanitarian outreach to families. Our MNPS team members have engaged in incredible work with students these past several weeks. You have probably seen much of it on social media. Teachers have been reaching out to check in with students, and many of them have been giving students robust materials and digital tools to continue learning. I've been inspired by so much of what I've seen from teachers, administrators, staff, students, and parents over the last month. They're communicating by email and by Zoom and sometimes by phone. They're finding creative ways to teach and learn, and they're keeping each other motivated. Everyone has been pulled out of their routine, out of their comfort zone, and yet everyone is working hard to make this situation work so that students can continue to grow and learn. And that is also a priority for us at the district level. We have prioritized ensuring that our students are not negatively impacted regarding grades and credits. We have shared our plan to support seniors in meeting their graduation requirements, and we have now distributed laptops to senior students in need to all high school students, as well as we will be rolling out and communicating for the lower grade bands in the days to come. Most importantly, we have distributed immense amounts of food and partnered with outside groups like Second Harvest Food Bank and Pencil to fill in gaps for our families. There is nothing more important than this humanitarian effort, and I am proud of what our teams and partners have accomplished. Now, we are entering into a new phase where we begin additional support for student growth, and I am fully confident in our teachers and our other team members. We know that we cannot wait on the state or the federal government. This is why we're mobilizing efforts now. Our teams have been hard at work determining how we educate students both now and when they return to school buildings. I did not want this board meeting to get past us without acknowledging the work to date of our educators and all team members, and without stating very clearly that plans are being readied for our next phases of education during the COVID crisis. And I look forward to sharing more information soon. What I can tell you is that we have 4 key principles that are guiding our planning as we take our next steps. Student connection, support, and growth are paramount. Simplicity is key. Phasing in the work together is part of the design, and we must always focus on continuous improvement. This is a big challenge for all of us, a big challenge for our team, but challenges often lead to opportunities and innovations, and this one will be no different. We have a great opportunity here to figure out how to deliver better instruction to our 86,000 students. And there's not a day or a moment that goes by where our team is not working hard at realizing that for all students. As you can recall, we have not only provided online resources, but hard copy materials, partnered with community leaders and organizations to provide relevant content and programming for students. We've provided frequent updates to our stakeholders via many of our communication platforms, and we will continue to do more of it. We've provided devices for students and have delivered over 82,000 meals and thousands of food boxes to families. On Friday, teachers will be receiving additional guidance around roles, responsibilities, and expectations for the weeks ahead. And by the end of next week, we will have a comprehensive analysis of student access to devices and internet. Then, on Monday, April 27th, we will be launching 2.0 of instructional engagement and learning to support our students in a deeper, more robust way. Our plans are comprehensive, and our plans provide strong platforms to keep our students growing and learning. I look forward to speaking to you about our plans again soon, and I appreciate your support as we navigate this extraordinary situation. Again, I appreciate your support. More information will be coming, but again, our priority has been and will continue to be around the humanitarian efforts, supporting our students, and thinking about how we can be innovative in engaging our students so they can continue to grow and learn. Thank you, Ms. Shepard, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Battle, for all that information. We will move on to our consent agenda. As we have done in the past, we will not read each item. We will just approve by not a voice vote, but tonight a roll call vote. But at this opportunity, at this time, I'd like to give your opportunity to my colleagues to pull anything off that they want to pull off.
Madam Chair, this is Christian Buggs.
Yes, ma'am.
I will need to abstain from this vote because United Way is on the list is on the consent agenda. Although our contract for United Way is actually donating money to MNPS, because of the conflict of interest, I'll be abstaining.
Ms. Shepard?
So that's number 20 under contracts and purchases? Yes. Okay, so you're going to abstain from that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anybody else?
Ms. Shepard?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Jill. I want to pull the ELA adoption off for continued discussion after our abbreviated meeting. We really didn't have enough time to hear from all the board members that wanted to discuss that. That's number N.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
And Anna, I just also would like to pull off the blueprint for early childhood success.
Which one is that, Amy?
The same one that Ms. Buggs mentioned.
Oh, okay. All right. If nobody else has any consent agenda items they would like to pull, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
This is Sharon Jutra. I move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second. This is Jill.
Okay, all right. Okay, Dr. Severi, do you want to do a roll call vote on this?
I will, yes. Dr. Gentry?
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Gentry votes aye. Ms. Elrod?
Aye.
Ms. Elrod votes aye. Ms. Spearing?
Yes.
Ms. Spearing votes aye. Ms. Buggs?
Yes.
Abstains?
Oh, okay. I have a question about that. Since it's been pulled, since the one that I want to abstain from has been pulled, I vote yes for the rest of the consent agenda.
Ms. Buggs votes yes. Ms. Bush? I believe she's made it on yet. Ms. Player-Peters?
Aye.
Ms. Player-Peters votes aye. Ms. Puba Walker?
Aye.
Ms. Frog?
Aye.
Ms. Frog votes aye.
Ms. Bush is on.
Ms. Bush?
Yes.
Yes, okay, excellent. Ms. Shepard?
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
that's 9 ayes.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So we will go to the first item that was pulled on consent agenda, and that's number 20, United Way of Greater Nashville. Ms. Frog.
Yes, I just wanted to get an update on this before we vote, because if my memory serves correctly, this was a program that included CKLA, Core Knowledge Language Arts, and the district has now moved away from CKLA, and so I don't really know what we're voting on, and I would just like to request that we have a discussion in a teaching and learning committee or some sort of presentation so we understand what we're voting on.
Sure. So I can give some updates and then we can still schedule the teaching and learning committee meeting. So MNPS came to United Way and needed some funding because read to be ready or read to rise, whatever funding was cut from the state would no longer allow us, MNPS, to fund the teaching of students over the summer for about 200 students, and United Way fundraised for it and so is now donating that money to MNPS. So if we are, if the lockdown is lifted over the summer and students are able to go to summer camps, that they can actually have funding, and so at least 200 students can actually go to summer camp.
Read to be ready. That's what it's called.
Read to be ready, yes.
Ms. Frog, this is David Williams. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Yes, and that amount was, as Ms. Buggs said, to replace some of the Read to Be Ready funding, but there was also, it was also intended to include a variety of other camps, for example, STEAM in the middle schools, literacy in the elementary schools, and a variety of other programs. So not just literacy specifically, you mentioned CKLA, so that will not be part of it. But this was, again, just intended to be part of our summer planning. Of course, we're in the situation now where we're having to make some adjustments to what those plans will be, given the health crisis. But that's what this funding is for, is to go to a variety of programs to serve students all across our district this summer.
Okay, so are the programs going to be in place this summer even? I mean, if school is out, I guess we just don't know whether they're going to be in place yet, right?
Right. We had a meeting last week and we're looking at 4 different scenarios and possibilities for how we're going to provide services to kids, because some of these are going to be considered essential, to provide for our families while the parents continue to work throughout the summer, of course. But we've got about 4 different scenarios and we're kind of following, like everyone else, the rest of closely the news day by day to see how the healthcare or the health recommendations play out and when the social distancing recommendations will be lifted. But we're looking at several different scenarios that we're ready to execute when we know more.
Okay, could I just get a little bit of an update about, just sort of a more specific update about what this entails, or is that all that needs to be shared?
Again, I can provide more information to you at a later time.
Okay.
Jennifer Bell is the one who definitely oversees our summer programming, and we've got a variety of folks that have been meeting throughout the spring gearing up for this to involve multiple programs, again, across our district. But, again, those plans have kind of come to a halt, and we've had to make plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D.
Okay. Well, I guess I would just like to make a motion maybe to have a full update before we vote on it. And if we can have that by the next meeting, that's fine.
So I'm okay with that, but can I just say I do remember that last year we made some inappropriate remarks about both MPF and about Pencil and about the way that we thought that we were funding them when in fact they donated to us. And as an employee of United Way and an employee of the Blueprint for Early Childhood Success, we're actually donating to MNPS. This is money that I'm hoping that, the lockdown will be lifted over the summer and that students can return to normal and actually go back to summer camps. So I'm totally okay with us having the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting, but I want us to be mindful that this is a time for all of our nonprofits that want to support us, for us to open our arms to them and say thank you. Thank you for giving us money that you don't have to give us, but I thank you for fundraising.
Okay, so I'd just like to restate my motion and ask for a second, please.
The motion was to table until the next meeting on the 28th. Is that correct, Ms. Froh?
Yes, or until there's an update provided for the board about what this entails.
Okay.
This is Jill Spearing, and I second that motion.
Okay. Dr. Severe, you want to take a vote?
I will. Dr. Gentry, this is on the motion to defer. Dr. Gentry?
No.
Ms. Elrod?
Yes.
Ms. Spearing?
Yes.
Ms. Spearing votes yes. Ms. Buggs is abstaining. Ms. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Player Peters?
Yes.
Ms. Player Peters votes yes. Ms. Pooper Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Pooper Walker votes yes. Ms. Frog?
Yes, and I just want to say
Yes.
I appreciate the information, but I feel like if we have a board member who is conflicted off the vote, they shouldn't be providing information. That's why I'm trying to have sort of a fair process where the administration is weighing in. So that's why I'm trying to do this in a fair way. So that's all. Thank you.
Ms. Shepard, aye or no?
Aye.
The vote is 7 ayes, 1 no, 1 present not voting.
Okay, thank you. All right, the second item taken off consent agenda was the number N, the ELA adoption, and Ms. Spearing.
Thank you, Ms. Shepard. Before I apologize, first of all, for the problems with technology on my end. I have some comments to make, but I'm not sure if anyone else wanted to make comments. I missed some of the meeting. So is there anyone else that would like to make comments about the presentation we heard earlier in Teaching and Learning about the ELA adoption?
Ms. Spearing, this is David. We went through the list of people sort of in the way you had asked, we had discussed and intended, and we were with Ms. Bush at the time. And so I do not know if Ms. Bush still has remaining lingering questions, but after that, it's certainly your call.
Thank you. Is Ms. Bush online?
Yes, I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and again, I apologize for the technology again. I came on really, really late, so I apologize. I did have the questions, but I think I got the answer. But one last question, how much is this costing? And again, I apologize about this fast.
So Ms. Bush, your question was about the cost
Yes,
for a specific program or grade band?
for this program, yes.
For Wit and Wisdom K2 or, okay, so I just, because we have 4 different adoptions, right? The K2, the 3.5, the 6.8, and then the high school. So if you're asking about the K2 and then the 3.5 for Wit and Wisdom, is that correct?
All.
Okay, all, okay. So typically the way the process works is that the negotiations first exist with Tennessee Book and the State Department because the state executes contracts with the Tennessee Textbook Commission. And so that happened back in November. And so we have a list of estimated costs from Tennessee Book. It's about 33 pages long. What my team did when we were preparing to propose a budget to include for the board was to go through and look at the average aggregated cost across a variety of programs. Our estimation that it would be upward around $14 million. That was based on those estimated costs that were provided through Tennessee Book from the state. And I went back and did some historical digging. We were over $9 million last time we did a reading and language arts adoption, and that was separate. Given the constraints, of course, through the budgeting process, what my team is prepared to do is to think through how we can, again, leverage our buying power to negotiate those costs down to the maximum extent possible. We also have considered things like a phased-in approach. We could do that by certain elements of the program or certain grade levels of the program, because next year is what's considered a light adoption year. There is no core academic area adoption next year. It's a CTE year. So if we wanted to space that out, we could. But to fully adopt, or purchase the materials that would be adopted, our estimates are $14 million. But again, those were based on the cost from Tennessee Book before we even knew what specific program we would be considering for purchase. So it could certainly be less than that.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bush. Frida, do you have any questions or comments?
No.
Okay. Jeannie, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. I want to echo our colleagues who gave a lot of kudos to Dr. Williams and the team of teachers who spent a significant amount of time outside of their regular duties to work on these committees, and to the hundreds and hundreds, over 1,000 people who weighed in and showed up or commented on the process. And I just want to also acknowledge that they have continued this through tornadoes and COVID and all the rest. And so it's not insignificant, the preparation and the work and the responsiveness to questions from board members and queries from lots of different folks. And so just appreciate the transparency, accessibility, and inclusive process. So big thank you to everybody for a great job.
Thank you, Jeannie. Amy, do you have any comments or questions?
Ms. Rogue, you're muted.
Sorry, I am just talking on with my thing on mute. Okay. Yeah, I have a question, and then I also have some comments. But my question is, are we required by any statutory authority or other rules to vote on a 6-year period for adoption of these materials?
So this is David, and if Dr. Sevier and Melissa are available to chime in from the legal standpoint, the statute that I cited in the presentation was 49-6-2207, and it says that boards are authorized and required to adopt materials from the state-approved list in accordance with that's established by the Textbook Commission. So there is a statutory obligation for the board to act. They are charged with doing that, and they are required to do that. I don't know if, again, Dr. Sevier or Melissa Roberge have any further comment in response to Ms. Rogue.
This is David Sevier. I would only add that it doesn't enumerate every 6 years, but the cycle comes around every 6 years. So that's when you have the opportunity. It's sort of like, voting for anything, it's in a cycle. And that's when your opportunity is to make that vote.
Okay, well, I have some comments, and I'm just going to read through them. But first, I do, like everyone else, I do want to thank Dr. Williams for this process. I've heard good things about the inclusion of teachers and the transparency of the process, so I appreciate that. I also very much appreciate the teachers who served on this committee and volunteered their time. I have immense respect for our teachers, and I appreciate your input in this process. But I do have some concerns that I would like to raise. And first and foremost, my primary concern is around the cost of the program, given the current budgetary situation we're in right now. We've been obviously charged with cutting $100 million this year. We don't have a budget for next year. We don't know how long the pandemic is going to last or how that'll impact the economy. I know that we are going to have to make some decisions despite the lack of certainty around our budget. But I think the cost is a factor. Second, the publication Education Week profiled wit and wisdom. This is the program with which I have some concerns. Education Week profiled wit and wisdom as a science of reading program that completely overhauled how one district taught reading and directed students toward phonics immersion rather than balanced literacy instruction. Dr. Battle has stated very clearly that MNPS is a balanced literacy district, and I am concerned that if we move forward with the adoption of this curriculum, we will commit our district to 6 years of what has now been labeled, quote, the science of reading. There have long been debates about the use of phonics versus whole language instruction, and these were to be resolved by the use of balanced literacy instruction, which incorporates aspects of both. Now we are dealing with a new iteration of literacy instruction, which has been labeled the science of reading. So to better explain my concerns, I'd like to read a joint statement from the National Education Policy Center and Education Deans for Justice and Equity, which was issued on March 19th, 2020. For those who are unfamiliar with the National Education Policy Center, it's a nonprofit university research center housed at the University of Colorado Boulder School of Education. It produces and disseminates high-quality, peer-reviewed research to inform education policy discussions. The bottom line of the statement that was issued by these two groups was this: there is no, quote, science of reading. It's time for the media and political distortions to end and for the literacy community and policymakers to fully support the literacy needs of all children. For the past few years, a wave of media has reignited the unproductive reading wars which frame early literacy teaching as a battle between opposing camps. This coverage speaks of an established science of reading as the appropriate focus of teacher education programs and as the necessary approach for early reading instruction. Unfortunately, this media coverage has distorted the research evidence on the teaching of reading, with the result that policymakers are now promoting and implementing policy based on misinformation. The truth is that there is no settled science of reading. The research on reading and teaching reading is abundant, but it is diverse and always in a state of change. Accordingly, the joint statement highlights the importance of professionally prepared teachers with expertise in supporting all students with the most beneficial reading instruction, balancing systematic skills instruction with authentic text and activities. This key idea of balanced literacy, balanced literacy approach, stresses the importance of phonics, authentic reading, and teachers who can teach reading using a full toolbox of instructional approaches and understandings. It is strongly supported in the scholarly community and is grounded in a large research base. The statement includes guiding principles for what any federal or state legislation should or should not do. At the very least, federal and state legislation should not continue to do the same things over and over again while expecting different outcomes. The disheartening era of No Child Left Behind provides an important lesson and overarching guiding principle. Education legislation should address guiding concepts while avoiding prescriptions that will tie the hands of professional educators. All students deserve equitable access to high quality literacy and reading instruction and opportunities in their schools. This will only be accomplished when policymakers pay heed to an overall body of high quality research evidence and then make available the resources as well as the teaching learning conditions necessary for schools to provide our children with the needed supports and opportunities to learn. Okay, so that's the statement about science of reading. And third, I am concerned about the way that the state selected the curriculum options for our review committee to consider. Our MNPS review committee is limited, of course, by the state and its selection process. And as many of us know, there has been a great deal of controversy at the state level over this new idea called the science of reading. Commissioner Penny Schwinn worked with the governor to try to pass a new science of reading bill this year that initially would have required districts to purchase certain curriculum. Schwinn's office was sued by one vendor that alleged the department unilaterally altered the textbook evaluation process to advantage certain preferred vendors, including Wit and Wisdom, and to disadvantage others. There have been lingering questions about whether Schwinn's office has followed a fair competitive bidding process in several instances, including this one, and Schwinn faced criticism about extending a $2.5 million no-bid contract to implement the state's emerging voucher program. During legislative hearings, one legislator commented that school districts felt, quote, pressured by Schwinn's office to use certain companies for the revised list of curriculum vendors, and obviously all of this causes me great pause. So before we commit MNPS to a 6-year change in reading instruction, I just want to make sure that we have complete assurance that we will continue to pursue a balanced literacy approach to reading, which is backed by a large body of peer-reviewed research, and that any materials we utilize are in accordance with this approach. And finally, I'm not a teacher, but I just want to kind of share my personal experiences around some of our reading instruction, which I think better explain why I am concerned about the direction we take with literacy. I have a daughter who is a huge bookworm, loves to read, and she told me a few years ago that she hates ELA, which surprised me because I really loved English class. And come to find out in her middle school, they were not reading books very much or delving into discussions of books. They were doing a lot of more mechanized learning and rote learning, and writing was very prescriptive. There wasn't a lot of creativity. And so I hope that we are moving away from following very clear curriculum rules. You know, we have a lot of state mandated rules around our curriculum, and there's too much focus on standardized testing, and that's gotten us away from discussing great literature, from sparking engagement and imagination. I think that's a real travesty for our students. I just want to say I do appreciate the work that everyone has done who reviewed the curriculum options. I think the teachers did exactly what we asked them to do. They reviewed the options they were given. They shared their expertise. But it's now our job to determine how this recommendation aligns with our strategic plan and our instructional philosophy. And I think we also have to consider the cost, particularly at this time. So I would like to make a motion. I want everybody to be able to speak and say whatever they need to say, but I would like to hit a pause button here. We may ultimately adopt this program, but I just want to get feedback from Dr. Battle as to how this program, particularly how Wit and Wisdom aligns with our balanced literacy focus. So I'll stop there. I am going to make a motion, but I know Jill had some comments that she wants to make. I know, and if other people want to comment before I make my motion, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I'm going to go ahead and make my comment since we've heard from all the other board members. When I asked David Williams for feedback from public review, he gave me a list of pages of information where teachers had analyzed. It was 181 teachers and administrators had analyzed the materials that were on display at MNEA. I was surprised that it wasn't in some kind of format where I could really make sense of it. So I took it upon myself to go through and count the numbers of 4s and 5s, numbers of 1s and 2s, the numbers of 3s in each of the categories. And the top choice from the textbook, for those who saw the materials on public review, the top choice was HMH. At 76 to 82% of those teachers rated the questions at a 4 or a 5. 83 to 97% rated those same questions at a 3 to a 5. The second highest scored curriculum was McGraw-Hill. 72 to 86% rated it a 3 to a 5, 3 to a 5, the highest. And the third highest score was Wit and Wisdom. Now, Wit and Wisdom had 51 to 86% rated it a 3 to a 5. But however, 50% rated 2 categories at a 1 or 2, the very lowest. So that was concerning to me. And then I checked what the State Department had said. I think we all agree that curriculum chosen for kindergarten and through 2nd grade is imperative, because this is where children learn to read, and that establishes the foundation for all future learning. So the state of Tennessee, the review committee, gave kindergarten for Wit and Wisdom failing scores. And they failed 3 out of 4 indicators in the review, and then again in the re-review on September 28th and 29th. Same thing happened for grade 1. They failed in 3 out of 4 sections, and in grade 2, they failed in 2 out of 4 sections. This is concerning to me as a primary teacher and a teacher of reading. My other comments, I've got about six comments to make here. If there seems to be, we understand, and and Dr. Battle has stated that we are a balanced literacy district. Yet, Wit and Wisdom requires 90 minutes daily of whole class instruction, whole group instruction. That does not fit the balanced literacy framework. That does not fit it's not aligned with balanced literacy. It's not correlated with balanced literacy, and they are opposing philosophies. The cost of Wit and Wisdom is a big concern to me, as Amy noted, especially given our budgetary constraints. Let's see. I'd like to hear from David in a minute, but I want to finish this first. But David, I have 2 questions. One is, what is the timeline for the adoption? Is there a deadline for today? And I'll get back with you in a moment. And then with the public review of 181 people, how was this information that we gleaned from public review of 181 people, how was that information used by the committee in order to bring in their voices for that final recommendation? The next question, David, is will TFTP be used to conduct the training? And my last comment is around the budget. We have so much uncertainty right now. There's uncertainty with leadership. I'm getting some feedback here. there's this uncertainty. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. There's uncertainty with the leadership at the state. A lot of legislators are angry with Penny Schwinn. There's uncertainty with leadership and curriculum and instruction. Our high positions, people in curriculum instruction are interims. We don't want to hamstring our permanent chief academic officer with a program that might not correlate with their philosophies. There is uncertainty with school budgets because we don't have, our schools have not been required to have a literacy coach this year. So there's uncertainty around that. There's great uncertainty around the district budget. We don't know how much money we will receive from the mayor and the council. We have to cut $100 million out of this budget. The biggest uncertainty is with COVID-19. How long will this pandemic go on? They're calling now for a possible resurgence in the fall that's anticipated. And I'm wondering if we would be wise to put any additional resources we have into distance learning so that we could invest in technology for all students to have access to internet computers. So, Amy, would you state your motion again?
Yes. Okay. So I would like I would like to make a motion to defer this vote in order to allow Dr. Battle to review the cost of these programs, to determine how the new recommended ELA curriculum aligns with our focus on balanced literacy, and to determine how the new ELA proposed curriculum aligns with our strategic plan. And I'm asking for a report on that before we vote.
I second that motion. Any discussion?
Could we hear from Dr. Williams as to what our deadline situation is?
Good job.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Ms. Shepard, thanks for the opportunity. And Ms. Spearing, if it's okay, I took notes on the questions you asked, so I'll respond to those if that's okay. I know that a motion was just made and seconded. The timeline for adoption originally was May 15th, and that is for the State Department. So as I mentioned earlier, according to state statute, the board is authorized and required to make an adoption. And then we are charged with, of course, submitting that information to the State Department. May 15th has been the original timeline. They have amended that timeline to June 15th as a result of the COVID crisis. I want to be clear that this is the state process for all 147 districts across the state. All of the districts that I had been in touch with, none of them were ahead of this process like we were. We have been out in front and been leaders in this space. So that amended timeline was really to make accommodation for those who were not in the same space that we were, but we are well prepared and we have been prepared to bring this to a vote for several weeks, according to the work from my teams. So delaying that will only allow us to lose possible time negotiating with publishers to get a better price. And it also just delays the implementation process of us beginning to work with publisher on what that timeline and process would look like. I just want to be clear about the cost again. When you look comparatively at Wit and Wisdom compared to the other elementary options, it's not necessarily any more expensive than the others. But what, again, you have to understand is that when you look at the price list, you have to negotiate down the different particular elements of a particular program. So, you may have thousands of lines of options from which to choose, and we're not required to purchase all of those. So we have to take the recommendation of the committee that says this is the best materials, which is what they have done, and then it's up to the district to be fiscally responsible and say, based on this recommendation, we want to get as much as we can within our budget constraints, within what's real, to get as much of the materials as we can. I've done that for the last 3 years. It's a multi-dimensional puzzle. That's why we have landed in the space of, say, class sets. Because we didn't have enough money to go around. So we're prepared again to make some tough decisions. Are there certain grade bands that we don't purchase for? Are there certain elements of the program that we don't purchase for? But until we have an adoption, we can't begin that process with a publisher to figure out how to get the best deal. The other question was about TNTP conducting the training. No, our contract with them is up this year. We are not pursuing that to continue. The other question was about public review, about how the information we gleaned from 181, at least we know that we're physically present, and more again had the opportunity to available online. The problem with making inferential statistics here is that when you look at who came in first, second, and third, you're assuming that there's a statistically valid representative sample, and we can't claim that because multiple people were allowed to submit as many responses as they like. We know that if you look across the spreadsheet that I sent, you have lots of gaps and holes. Not every person who participated reviewed all of the materials. We know that some people didn't follow the directions and they only did one survey for all the programs. So the reason that the data was not cleaned and formatted was because I didn't want to induce any formatting that might put me in the position of analyzing or synthesizing the data for the committees. So what I did was just simply provide the raw data that we collected as is. It took us about a week to take the paper surveys and put it into the electronic format so that we could sort it and give it to our committees. When they met at their caravans on February 19th in the afternoon, we had a protocol where they went through and they reviewed all the feedback from the MEA review. I sent all of the raw data on February 10th to all of our committee members and asked that they review every single comment. And I sent that to all of our committee members, all grade bands. So even if they were on the K2, for example, they had the opportunity to read the feedback from other grade levels.
And Ms. Shepard, if it's okay, I would like to chime in with a few things. Just for clarity, I know there's been some questions with regards to the calls for wit and wisdom and the estimates that David and his team has provided. I just want to be clear that the $14 million estimate is a combination of all materials, not just the K2 and the 3-5 adoption spaces is for all adoption materials. So just want to be clear about that, and to also kind of elevate the conversation with regards to cost. Every year, or based upon the cycle where we've had textbook adoptions, we've always adopted materials, and then we've made informed decisions, as David has mentioned, with negotiations with the publisher and based upon funding and investments priorities that we have as a district and a board with regards to purchasing. And so this would be the same manner. If you think back to why we have some of the priorities we have around adoption materials, and resources for teachers and students, it is because we've had a budget shortfall in years past and not been able to purchase all materials. And so that is not new territory for us. It might be a different span or challenge as we're facing this particular ELA adoption, but that is somewhat of why we're in the state that we're in and looking to go back and invest in materials that we've not been able to afford or purchase in the past. And also with regards to the budget impact and the potential $100 million that's been communicated from the mayor's office, what's been asked of us is to identify where those savings will be, not to act on them just yet, but to identify what those savings will be, which we have done, which will be very much needed from us anyway, as a district and organization, to be good stewards of the funds that we have and to take proactive measures around giving our school closure state how we can capture savings, given that we're not fully functioning with all of our buildings being currently open. And we know that initial closure started out with an extended spring break and has since been extended at least through April 24th. So just wanted to add that additional context based upon the conversations and questions that have been asked and the information that David has shared.
Thank you, Dr. Battle. We have a motion on the board floor to defer or delay the vote on the ELA adoption, and it has been properly seconded. At this time, I would like to give my colleagues an opportunity to weigh in on that. If anybody else has any comments that they would like to add.
Madam Chair, I do. This is Fran.
Okay.
As Jill mentioned, you know, that's my world. That's what I breathe and sleep every day. It's early literacy for our kids. And the information that she just presented is pretty alarming that in those age groups, younger age groups, there has been a fail rate. So I too am agreeing to defer this to get more information, studies and documentation to prove differently. So I do support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Bugs?
I'm sorry, it's Rachel Ann.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad.
That's okay, that's okay. All right, so I was no fan of HB 2229. I believe that there's no sure path or science to reading myself. Except for maybe that there's a high qualified educator in front of a student. That's maybe the only true puzzle piece that we know. However, my concern is about, I guess, the validity of this motion. Our procedures just state that we are to approve what the teachers have provided in front of us. It doesn't state that we're really allowed to do anything else. So I'm trying to make sure that we're working within the parameters that we are supposed to work within. So are we allowed to do this?
I would like to defer to Melissa Roberge if she is on the call. She's probably not. But according to the state law that I've been provided, the information I've been provided is that we are, the LEA is legally bound to approve any adoption, whether it be ELA or any other textbook adoption. And so we as a local LEA, and I think my colleagues feel the same way, I am very grateful that we have teachers that want to step up to the plate and, you know, weigh in on that process. Since I am not an educator by trade, these teachers are. Dr. Severe, do you have any information you'd like to add on that?
The interpretation of the statute, as I read it, is pretty straightforward. It's that the board approves the recommendation, and I do not see any language in the statute that allows for the recommendation to be changed by the board. So it would require going back and asking the committee, you know, is this what you really meant? And if they say, well, yes, this is still our recommendation, then it's your statutory responsibility to ratify that.
Okay.
And not ratifying it puts you out of compliance with the statute. Now, I don't know what the penalty is. There's not a penalty enumerated in the statute, but it's a law that is one that's a law of compliance.
Right.
Can we call the question?
Can I clarify a point? Because I did have some discussions with TSBA about it, and it's my understanding, I mean, obviously we're not being called to vote just to automatically approve things. I mean, there'd be no point in us voting. We cannot pick. We don't get to pick what the curriculum is. That is the charge of the teachers. And all I'm asking is that we have a delay before we make the decision so that we can get more feedback on some of these questions. Because I do have all these concerns, and the primary concerns are the cost and, of course, whether this will serve our balanced literacy. So we can vote no, in which case I believe the committee would have to start over. But I'm just asking for a delay before we vote so we can get more information.
And just to be clear, just because we have some more information, whether we like that information or not, whether we agree with it or not, we are still legally bound to approve the process. Is that correct, Dr. Severe?
That's my interpretation.
Okay.
Yes.
But we're not, but my understanding is that we are not legally bound to vote yes on the recommendation.
Right.
I mean, we have to vote on something, yes or no, and we don't get to pick the curriculum ourselves, but we don't. So I just want to make that like, there'd be no point in us voting if the goal were for us to just vote yes every time. So that's why I'm asking for more information.
Okay.
Ms. Shepard, this is Dr. Williams. Can I just make a point of clarification that the adoption process is completely separate from the purchase? So by adopting a program does not commit you in any way to pay for any of it. So that's why I say that we have an estimated cost list from Tennessee Book. Based on the board's approval, we will then be able to work with the publisher to go into contract negotiations at that point. And if we decide to, if our budget allocation is a certain amount, then we get what we can this year, and then we go back next year. So those are distinct processes. I just want a point of clarification. And then second of all, the funding, the cost was not a consideration of the committee, of course. You don't expect our teachers who are subject matter experts to consider and weigh costs. That's what the district does, and that's what the board does through the budget approval process. But if we're getting into a comparative analysis again of looking at one program versus the other, this particular program that our committee has selected is certainly not the most expensive product.
Okay. So David, thank you for that clarification, because that wasn't clear to me. But if we do adopt this, we are committed to, if whatever purchase we make would have to go toward these vendors for 6 years, right? Like.
That is correct. You're adopting this program, or if you adopt the recommendation, then you can't purchase anything outside that. But again, you don't have to purchase that necessarily.
So we would expect that. So if we adopt it and we have to purchase something, it would have to be these programs, but the cost is negotiable, and then it would come to us as separate contracts to approve the cost if it's over a certain amount.
No, ma'am. The contracts will not come to you because they are. We would be purchasing from a state contract. So this approval process, conjoined with the board's budget approval process, is that approval for purchase of the materials.
Okay, what happens if we approve the purchase and we don't have the funds to put them?
Then we would be in a situation where we would have to apply for an extension to use the current materials, because those would have been out of the adoption cycle of the state. And so we would have to apply for a waiver for the state to continue to use the ones that we currently have, which are now, of course, obsolete because all of the vendors and publishers have replaced them with new programs. That's tricky as well.
Okay. And then the other question I have is, are the schools, if we approve the adoption, are all schools mandated to use these particular materials within MPS?
Good job. You did it. You did it.
For all teachers to implement these materials, the situation that we have been in vertically across grades and then from school to school, and when you think about those who have been in the CKLA study or schools of innovation or schools that are not in those two camps, it's been very difficult for us to support a strong integral implementation with multiple programs and instructional materials. And so what we would like to do is we have to have some level of consistency and equity, so that regardless of the school that a student or teacher finds themselves in, that there is some baseline level of expectation to use these materials. And there is some legal precedent that there is a compelling interest that the board has to ensure that consistency. So when we have multiple programs occurring in different schools and you have student and teacher mobility, you run into really huge equity challenges.
And so schools of innovation would also use the same programming?
Yes, ma'am. That is something that Dr. Battle and Dr. Griffin and I are expecting to do. Absolutely.
Okay. So I just want to reiterate, I'm asking for a delay for more information before we make a final vote. But that was very helpful.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
This is Christian Buggs, Madam Chair. The only comment that I'll make is that considering that we are still in tornado recovery, I'm getting calls every day about technology for students and about our seniors graduating. I just don't want to take up more time from our teachers who are already calling students every day and dropping off meals to kids and volunteering in their own communities. I think moving forward, I do think it's good for us to make sure we ask questions and get as much feedback as possible. But I would just ask us as a board to do that ahead of time, considering that we started this process back in October. I just don't think now is the time to ask our teachers who are already stressed like the rest of the world to give us more feedback and do more sidebar work for something that they volunteered for. Whatever issues that we have with the state, and we do have issues. I just want our teachers and those committee members to feel valued. And maybe I think we as a board need to kind of step up our advocacy. I would totally be up for us reaching out to the state board to ask them for either waivers or extensions or funding or whatever the case may be so that this committee can move forward. But that's my stance, and I would like to call for the question.
Okay. All right. So the question.
May I please respond to Christian first? This to me, I would like to have more time, not just to hear from teachers, but also to understand from administration how we are going to correlate balanced reading, balanced literacy with wit and wisdom. How are we going to teach children to read in K2 with whole group instruction? So that's going to take some time to understand that. I've been working on this not just a couple of days, but over a week. And I still don't have enough information to approve this for my own educational background. So I appreciate the motion, Ms. Buggs, and that's all I have.
Okay. So the motion has been made and properly seconded, and Ms. Buggs has called for the question. Ms. Frog, would you like to restate your motion, please?
Yes, hold on. All right.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to defer this vote in order to allow, allow Dr. Battle to review the cost to determine how this new ELA curriculum aligns with our focus on balanced literacy and determine how the new proposed ELA curriculum aligns with our strategic plan.
Okay. And it has been properly seconded. And Dr. Severe, if you would do a roll call vote, I would be very appreciative.
Dr. Gentry? Dr. Gentry? Ms. Elrod?
Yes.
Ms. Spearing?
Yes, I vote to defer.
Ms. Buggs?
No.
Ms. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Player-Peters?
Yes.
Ms. Pooper-Walker?
Nope.
Ms. Frog?
Yes.
Ms. Shepard?
Yes.
Dr. Gentry?
No.
Madam Chair, you have 6 ayes, 3 noes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Severe. So hopefully we will have this at our meeting on the April the 28th, which is in 2 weeks from now. And at that point in time, we will have to have a vote. Dr. Battle and Dr. Williams, does this give y'all enough time to gather some information for the board members who had questions?
Dr. Battle, I was going to defer to you, of course.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I believe so. It will be important for us to make sure we have all questions that are still outstanding well in advance so that we can prepare and provide that information. But otherwise, it should be a pretty simple process and opportunity to present and share.
Dr. Severe, I hate to put anything else on your plate, but would you mind being the gatherer of those questions and forward them on to Dr. Williams and Dr. Battle?
Certainly, if board members have any questions at any time, they're always welcome to send them to me and I get them to the appropriate people.
I would really appreciate it. So we will look for a TNL meeting at some point between now and April the 28th, so we can go ahead and put this baby to rest. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question just to make sure we're clear, because I heard Dr. Williams be pretty adamant that at this point, neither he nor the committee had gotten into costs.
Right.
I know that the motion still contained a request for information about costs. So I just want to be sure to both Drs. Williams and Battle that you're prepared to provide the information. And what I would just ask also that, you know, what we're charged to do is to ensure that we are monitoring against our strategic plan as a board. We're monitoring against our strategic plan. So if you all would just ensure that whatever's in this, that there's either a statement or some reassurance that what the committee did understand was what we're charged to accomplish in this space of literacy per the board approved strategic plan. And that, you know, that the committee has done their due diligence with those end goals in mind. Because at the end of the day, that's what we are holding, and that's we are charged. That's what we're holding you accountable for. Is that? So I think putting that piece in there and just being very clear on the extent to which you can provide at this information related to cost.
Good points, Dr. Gentry. And, you know, a couple of things that Dr. Williams said, one that really sticks in my mind is the fact that, you know, of course, teachers were not given a budget when, you know, because they're going in as ELA professionals, and we would not expect them to have a budget in front of their face. We want them to be selecting the best products for our students. And so Dr. Williams made reference to the fact that in years past, you know, because of budget constraints, they've had to phase in some of the recommendations that the board has approved. And so this is not, as the expression goes, this is not their first rodeo in doing that. And it's my assumption, I hope I'm correct in thinking that that has not compromised the program or the learning by the students just because we had to face something because of budgetary constraints this year. Well, might be a little tighter, will be no different than we've had in the past when we've had difficult budget years. So, I think that the skill set exists with Dr. Williams and his staff. And if someone wants to correct me, please do. Okay, being no more discussion on the consent agenda, we will move on to item number 2, which is the Director of Schools contract. Melissa Robert, is this where you come in?
She is not on the line, but if there are specific questions, she can hear them, and she will send the answers to me in real time, and I'll relay those. We've worked out a little Pony Express situation.
Okay, so let me go ahead and read what she had sent me to preface this particular item on the agenda. She said that this agenda that we have in front of us is just constitutes the essential business of this board, and meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. I think I touched on that momentarily. And the second is a preliminary motion would be a general motion for electronic meetings to suspend any board rules to the extent that they conflict with the governor's order of electronic meetings. But I think we have that pretty much figured out with a roll call vote on each agenda item that we're having to vote on tonight. So it's my understanding that each and every one of us received a copy of the final contract that Melissa had made with us with our comments, and she did a really good job in contacting all the board members to getting, what their source of angst were, if they had any, and ironing out, all those differences so that we can have a permanent contract for our permanent directors of school, who we selected a month ago on March the 13th. Even though it was a Friday the 13th, it has worked out well so far. For us anyway, I'm not sure if Dr. Battle agrees with that, but we certainly agree with that. So in light, it does, I don't know if everyone has that contract in front of them. If anyone has any comments that they'd like to make or changes that they'd like to make, go ahead at this time. I think Melissa is waiting to get on in the meeting.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Okay, I think that would be Ms. Robert.
Yeah, I managed to join by phone. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
No worries. Does anyone have any questions or changes that they'd like to make to the contract that you were sent?
Madam Chair, this is Jeannie. I think, I personally am in support of the contract. I think it's good as it stands. I think that Dr. Battle's made clear that she has been amenable to this and been ready to move forward. I think that the contract reflects the work at hand, and I'm ready for her to move forward.
Okay.
Ms. Shepard?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Jill Spearing.
Mm-hmm.
I was in New Zealand when the board voted to suspend the search process and appoint then interim director, Dr. Adrian Battle, as permanent director of MNPS. When Adrian took the reins a year ago, the district was suffering some of the lowest culture in the 30 years that I've worked for MNPS. It's going to take years to rebuild the culture and trust for our teachers. And we are on our way to do that because of Dr. Battle's leadership. Adrian has been a breath of fresh air. Her decision-making process during the recent tornado and present pandemic are noteworthy and in some instances extraordinary. I'm happy to support this contract today and look forward to working with Dr. Battle. Thank you.
Any other comments? So I will just echo Ms. Spearing's remarks. Prior to the vote on the 13th, I like to inform my constituents as to what the board is doing and keeping them abreast. And I heard from teachers and school administrators that I rarely hear from because they are rock stars in their own right and they don't need anything from me. And they were just encouraging me, not telling me, but encouraging me to strongly consider Dr. Battle. And there was nobody else more married to the process than I was. But it was clear after the first interview that we had that Monday night that this process was just going to be stymied. I mean, first we had the tornado of the second day on Tuesday, and then we had the pandemic outbreak. And I just had to, realize that we had a gem in Dr. Battle, and that, the process was not important at this point, that we needed someone of her caliber to lead our district. And I can't say that I have been disappointed one time since the vote on March the 13th. I was pleasantly surprised when I walked in that meeting on the 13th and the room was packed and they were holding people at the door. I thought Dr. Battle must have contacted everybody on her invitation list because everybody in the world is here. But I do appreciate the support of my colleagues in this search. It's, stymied as it was, and in selecting Dr. Battle with a unanimous vote. I too have weighed in on the contract that we are going to offer Dr. Battle tonight, and it looks good to me, and I'm in support of both her and this contract. If anyone else has any comments, please feel free. Okay, seeing none, then we will ask Dr. Severe if he will do a roll call vote to approve. Well, I guess I need a motion. Is that correct?
This is Frida Player Peters. Motion to approve the Director of Schools contract for Dr. Adrian Battle.
Second, this is Jeannie.
Jeannie, okay, great. All right, so we'll, any other discussion? In light of no discussion, then we'll go ahead and ask Dr. Severe to do a roll call vote.
Dr. Gentry? Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Anna, this is Melissa. Are you proposing the contract with the automatic COLA increases or COLA increases being subject to board approval?
What was the last one that you sent us?
The last one that I sent had an or in there, so whoever I think wants to make a motion one way or the other.
Oh, okay.
And then we can go from there.
Okay. So I don't know if y'all heard, Melissa, and what section is that in, Melissa? Compensation. Oh.
It's 9A.
Paragraph 9.
Okay. Okay. So we have a situation where Dr. Battle's base salary would be automatically considered in a COLA adjustment, or we can say that those COLAs must be approved by the board. So
and Madam Chair, just for those that are listening, the COLAs, we're talking about cost of living adjustments, right?
We are. Sorry, I thought everybody knew that. So, Ms. Frida Player Peters, if you want to restate your motion to address the COLAs.
I make a motion to approve the Director of Schools contract as stated, or based on, or the base salary shall be increased by the action of the board.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Who did that?
Jill Spearing.
Okay. All right. We have a motion on the floor to approve the contract that was sent to us by Melissa Roberge, which would have the board approve any cost of living adjustments to the Director of Schools base salary, and it's been properly seconded. Any discussion at all? Okay.
This is Jeannie. I want to make sure I understand what it is we're saying here. We will decide what the increase would be, or would it be, or we would just give her the COLA? We would have to approve it each year to give her the COLA, or would we be approving a different amount each year?
This is Frida speaking. I take it as we have to vote whenever we will give a COLA, we will have to vote on the amount each time with it. And my thought is we'll just keep it in line with whatever we give to our employees. So given right now, knowing that the budget constraints we're going to have, that will be equal, and we just do it individually per year as we do the employees, but just do it separate. So just give us a little bit of freedom to do it, to just make sure that's in line with it. But it's just taken on a per year basis as we do it. That's my thought.
Okay. All right, so it's been stated that we would approve the contract with the school board approving the COLA increase that was offered to all the other employees for MNPS. Excuse me. Any other discussion or questions? All right, Dr. Sparrow, if you would mind doing a roll call vote.
Dr. Gentry? Dr. Gentry votes aye. Ms. Elrod?
Aye.
Ms. Elrod votes aye. Ms. Spearing?
Aye.
Spearing votes aye. Ms. Buggs?
I told y'all a year ago, yes.
Ms. I. Ms. Buggs votes aye. Ms. Bush?
Yes.
Bush votes aye. Ms. Player-Peters?
Aye.
Ms. Player-Peters votes aye. Ms. Pooper-Walker?
Aye.
Ms. Pooper-Walker votes aye. Ms. Frogue?
Aye.
Ms. Frogue votes aye. Ms. Shepard?
Aye.
Ms. Shepard votes aye. Madam Chair, you have 9 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that and weighing in on the discussion for this. So we have a director of schools and she has a contract, and so we can actually put that one to rest. We have, completed our duties finally in regard to, where that's concerned. So we will move on to, we'll move on to if anyone has any announcements. Can we start with you, Ms. Frobe?
I don't have any, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Frieda?
I don't have any. Thank you.
Okay.
Stay safe.
All right. Does anybody have any announcements?
I have a question.
Okay.
This is Fran.
All right.
Did I miss the motion for Thomas Edison? Did I miss that on Jay?
It was approved on consent.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm always behind on 8 ball, right? Thank you.
Okay.
Shepard,
Yes, ma'am.
do you want, I don't have any announcements, but do you want me to give a overview of our Teaching and Learning Committee meeting at this time?
Please.
All right. The Teaching and Learning Committee meeting met on April 14th this afternoon at 4 o'clock. David Williams and his team members presented on the English Language Arts Adoption Committee. The information was provided on committee members, the screening instruments for grades 1, 4, 7, and English 2, responses from public review, and the committee's recommendations. The underlying premise is that teachers deserve the best tools and resources available so that they can focus their time to meet the needs of individual students and cultivate their own professional development. According to Tennessee Statute 49-6-2207, local boards of education are responsible for the adoption of textbooks and instructional materials. This committee's work did not complete in committee, so it continued in the boardroom, and there was a vote to defer for more information, and that will be taken up possibly in 2 weeks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Madam Chair, this is Christian Buggs.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to take this time, since I'll be sending this out to my community members and posting to social media, that if parents or families have questions about technology or about digital tools or resources, to please reach out to us as board members, to please visit MNPS.org/digital tools, to please watch NPT from 6 a.m. to about 4 p.m. for different resources that are available there. And then I've got to give a special shout out to my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, my line sisters 13 years ago. They're listening right now. 13 years ago, we crossed the burning sands at the Tennessee State University, the Alpha Chi chapter, and 59 of my peers, we became members, and I love you all so much. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you to Deltas across the world. Shout out to Alpha Chi. Shout out to Tennessee State. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Buggs. Anybody else have anything? It's been quiet, hasn't it? All right, so since we have no further business, I will declare this meeting adjourned, and I appreciate everybody joining. It wasn't as painful as I thought it might be.
Well, I got kicked off a few times, so it was painful in the beginning.
Only you, Ms. Buggs.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.